It was a Saturday morning when my world cracked open, not with a scream or a betrayal or a goodbye, but with a number on a screen. £57,000. That's how much should have been there. I checked the balance like I always did. At the start of each month, quietly, without fanfare, without expectation, just the way you visit a bank vault that holds not money, but a dream. Our daughter, Lily, only 12 but sharp as a tack and already dreaming in Ivy League syllables, had once circled a Harvard brochure with a red pen and taped it to her mirror like a battle flag. She'd said, "I want this, Daddy," and I'd said, "Then you'll have it." And I meant it. Every overtime shift, every canceled trip, every time I said no to something for myself, I did it, so one day I could say yes to her future. But when I opened the banking app that morning, still bleary-eyed and clutching a cup of coffee, the numbers slapped me awake. zero point 0 pound. Zero. Not low. Not pending. Empty. I stared at it, refreshed the app, stared again. Maybe I was in the wrong account. Maybe it was a glitch. I logged into the desktop site, double-checked the account number, the same one I'd been paying into since Lily was born, and yet it was gone. I didn't panic right away. I wanted to believe in reason, in systems, in Elise, my wife. We'd been together 16 years. She worked in finance. She was good with numbers, better than me. I thought maybe she moved it temporarily. Maybe there was a transfer she forgot to mention. So I walked into the kitchen and asked casually, "Hey, did you do anything with the college fund?" She didn't even look up from her phone, just sipped her smoothie and said, "What do you mean?" I told her what I saw, that the balance was zero, that the whole account was wiped. And for the briefest second, something flickered across her face, not confusion, not shock, but calculation. Like she was flipping through mental files. "Oh," she said after a beat, "must be a system error. You know how those apps mess up sometimes." But her voice was too light, too dismissive, like a student bluffing through a test they didn't study for. And that's when I noticed Lily in the doorway, watching. She hadn't said a word, hadn't made a sound, just stood there, backpack slung over one shoulder, her eyes bouncing between us, absorbing everything. Elise didn't even notice. She just kissed me on the cheek, told me she was heading to her yoga class, and left her smoothie half drunk on the counter. When the door closed, Lily walked over and sat across from me. "She's lying," she said softly, and there was no hesitation in her voice. "I saw her transfer something last week. She had both her phones open. One was your old iPad. She didn't know I was awake." I blinked, stunned. "What do you mean, phones?" Lily looked around as if the walls had ears. "She has another one. It's always in her handbag. I think it's for someone else. I've heard her whispering at night." My chest tightened. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it. Elise had never been perfect, but she was organized, loyal, the kind of person who remembered birthdays and packed vitamins into color-coded pillboxes. She wouldn't. She couldn't. But Lily looked at me with those wide, unblinking eyes that had never lied to me once in 12 years, and I knew she already knew. I went back to the laptop, dug through the transaction history. The money hadn't just disappeared, it had been withdrawn in chunks. First a few thousand, then 5, then 20, over the course of 4 weeks, each one labeled private transfer. And not once had she said a word. I opened our joint account and cross-referenced emails. I found 2 transaction confirmation emails forwarded to a Gmail address I didn't recognize. Elise never used Gmail. She had a corporate account and a personal Outlook. I copied the email, ran it through a reverse lookup site. It was linked to a temporary travel booking service and a name I'd never seen, De Halvorsen. I Googled him. Nothing. But Lily, standing behind me now, said, "He's the man from the picture." I turned. "What picture?" She hesitated, then ran upstairs and returned with a folded sheet of paper. It was a printed photo from Elise's office printer, one I must have missed while sorting old work documents weeks ago. Elise smiling her hand across the table, holding the hand of a man I didn't recognize. Blonde, mid-40s. A face like a toothpaste ad to perfect to trust. "I found it in the shred bin," Lily whispered. She didn't shred all the way. I put it back together. My hands went numb. I sat back, staring at my daughter, who had become the detective. "I didn't know I needed." "Why didn't you say anything earlier?" I asked. She looked down, "Because I thought maybe it would stop. Maybe she'd come back to us. But when you said the money was gone, I knew she wasn't coming back." "Not really." I reached across the table and held her hand. "We'll fix this," I said, but I didn't know how. All I knew was my wife had stolen our daughter's future, and my daughter, 12 years old, quiet as snowfall, was already planning how to take it back. We didn't cry. We didn't scream. We just sat there, 2 halves of a broken promise, starting to piece together the truth. The betrayal wasn't loud. It didn't knock over furniture or leave bruises. It was slow, silent, clinical, logged in digits and passwords and bank codes. But it wasn't invisible, and my daughter had seen it all. I thought the worst part was over when I found out Elise had drained the account, but I was wrong. The worst part was realizing she never intended to stop. Betrayal doesn't end when the truth comes out. Sometimes that's when it sharpens. When it begins to show you just how deep the roots run. In the days after that Saturday morning, I moved like a ghost through my own house, smiling when I had to, cooking meals I barely tasted, pretending not to see Elise's new makeup, the perfume she never wore before, the sudden gym visits and late-night work meetings that used to be rare but now came like clockwork. I said nothing not because I didn't care, but because I didn't yet understand how far it went. Elise treated the silence like permission. But Lily was watching. She didn't speak about what she'd shown me, didn't bring it up again. She simply started noticing more where Elise left her phone, how she slipped out to take certain calls, the passwords she typed when she thought no one was looking. Lily had always been observant, the kind of kid who remembered where you left your keys even when you didn't. But now she was more than that. She was vigilant. She was becoming something dangerous not out of anger, but protection, of me, of herself, of the dream that Elise had tried to erase. And then one night, long after Elise had kissed me goodnight and rolled over to sleep with her back turned, I heard the creak of the floorboards downstairs. I thought it might be the cat at first, but then I saw Lily's bedroom light glowing. Under her door, not bright, but a faint blue pulse. I knocked gently, and when she opened the door, she didn't look surprised. She was still in her pajamas, but her face was lit by the screen of her tablet. "Dad," she said softly, "I need to show you something." I followed her into her room, and she closed the door behind us with the precision of someone who knew the walls could talk. "I used Mom's office laptop," she whispered. "She left it open when she went to shower. I didn't touch anything, just read what was on the screen." She handed me her tablet where she'd taken pictures. Blurry but legible. The first was an email. Subject, transfer confirmed. The body read, "It's done. Transferred it from the joint account. He'll never know. Book the tickets." Same suite as last time. And beneath it, an attachment, a PDF. Lily had zoomed in, screenshot by screenshot. It was a booking confirmation. 5-star hotel, Paris, 2 guests, booked in advance for the following weekend. Price, £4,200, paid in full. I felt my stomach turn, but Lily wasn't done. "She used your old iPad for some of it," she said. "The one you reset last year. But you didn't remove your Apple ID." I logged into iCloud. Some of her messages are still syncing there. She handed me the tablet again and flipped to a text thread. Elise and a contact saved only as D. His replies were all short, careful, calculated. "Leave it all to me. He won't suspect a thing. Don't panic. Just smile when you're with him. Tell her something came up. We'll make it up to her later." And then the photo. The man from the cafe picture again. Different setting, hotel room this time. Elise's hair down, her head on his chest, his arm around her waist. The timestamp read 2 weeks ago. That was the same weekend she'd told Lily she was on a women's retreat. I remember how Lily had cried quietly that night when Elise didn't call. Said she must have lost signal. But now we knew. I looked at Lily and saw no tears in her eyes, just cold resolve. "She's using us," she said. "She thinks we're stupid. She thinks she can steal my future and spend it on him." I didn't know what to say. I felt the heat rise in my chest, the helpless rage of a man who wanted to scream but didn't want to wake the neighbors. So I asked her, "Why did you save all this? Why not just delete it or show the school counselor or something?" She looked down, then met my eyes with a fierceness I didn't recognize. "Because I don't want revenge," she said. "I want proof. I want to outsmart her." And in that moment I realized my 12-year-old wasn't just trying to survive. Her mother's betrayal, she was building a case. She was turning evidence into power. And I was following her lead. Later that night, as Elise slept soundly beside me, I stared at the ceiling, heart racing. I wanted to confront her, drag her lies into the light, demand she explain how she could destroy something so sacred. But Lily was right. If we yelled now, she'd just lie again, cover it, gaslight us, hide the rest, and who knows what else was buried. So we waited. That very night, Lily texted me from her tablet. Just 6 words. "Dad, I know what she did. I need your help." And just like that, the game changed. We weren't victims anymore. We were partners. We met in secret the next afternoon, not in the house, not in her room, but out back, in the old shed where she used to host imaginary tea parties and dress her dolls in princess gowns. That space had once been filled with glitter and fairy lights, but now the dolls were gone, the walls dusty, the little table replaced with a folding one covered in documents, scribbled notes, and a hand-drawn flowchart taped to the wooden wall. "Welcome to Operation Owl," Lily said, her voice low but steady, as she clicked on a small desk lamp and pointed to her diagram. "Owls see everything in the dark? That's what you told me once, remember?" I nodded, stunned. I hadn't realized she'd held on to that old metaphor I'd used during bedtime stories. Now she'd turned it into a war room, We have 3 problems, she said, holding up a notepad. 1. Mom stole the money. 2. She's still lying. 3. She thinks no one's smart enough to stop her. That's where we come in. Then she pulled out her tablet and laid out her findings. It wasn't just the emails or the hotel receipts anymore. Lily had gone deeper. Using the iPad Elise thought was wiped, she accessed synced notes, old email drafts, even auto-filled logins that opened a burner email account Elise had used to message the man from the photo, a man Lily had now identified as Damon Halvorsen, a supposed investment advisor based in Nice, France. But Damon wasn't an advisor. Lily had found his name on a French-language message board under a fraud alert thread tied to multiple romance scams and private fund siphoning cases stretching from the UK to Luxembourg. He's not just her lover, Lily said calmly. He's a conman, and she gave him everything. She pointed to a set of numbers. Look at this account 18000 transferred to a crypto wallet last week. Same trail of IPs, same hotel Wi-Fi. She didn't just betray us, Dad, she's funding his next job. I sat in stunned silence, staring at the pile of digital breadcrumbs my 12-year-old had unearthed. It was methodical, bulletproof. She even had timestamps lined up against Elise's calendar entries, spa appointments that never happened, meetings that were never scheduled, all while the money moved through shadowy third-party exchanges. She thinks I'm a kid, Lily whispered, that I wouldn't notice, that I'd forget. Her hands were shaking slightly now, though her face remained composed. But I remember everything, every promise, every time she told me college was coming, and all I had to do was wait. She took a breath. So now it's her turn to wait. I leaned in, still trying to process how a girl who just turned 12 was planning counter-surveillance on her own mother. What do you mean, her turn to wait? Lily smiled grimly. We let her think she's still winning. Let her book the trip. Let her believe she's clever. Meanwhile, I keep collecting everything. Then, when the moment's right, she tapped her notepad. We expose her to her employer, the bank fraud department, and the police, all at once. Triple impact. That could ruin her, I said quietly, not sure who I was trying to protect any more. Lily, or some fading version of Elise I hadn't quite let go of. She ruined herself, Lily replied coldly. She chose this, not us. Then she picked up a printout of a chat log she'd recovered dated just 4 days ago. In it, Elise told Damon she was trying to access another locked fund from a relative, and that he's getting suspicious, but I've got him under control. When Damon replied, he used a phrase that chilled me. One more hit and we disappear. That's when I realized this wasn't just betrayal. This was theft with an exit plan. Elise wasn't going to stop at Lily's fund. She had already tried to access my personal savings and pension. She had filed online requests pretending to be me, and the only reason they failed was because she couldn't answer the final security questions. She was planning to take everything, I muttered. Lily nodded. That's why we don't give her a chance. We build the case. Then we shut her down before she vanishes. I watched her pull a small flash drive from her hoodie pocket and place it on the table. It's all here. I made a backup in case she finds out. The same girl who once cried when she lost her teddy bear was now setting digital traps like a miniature detective. My throat tightened with a mix of pride, heartbreak, and sheer disbelief. You're incredible, I whispered. You know that? She looked at me with a flicker of sadness. I just want things to be good again, Dad, not perfect, just honest. That night, after Elise returned from her so-called yoga class wearing heels and a dress she didn't own 2 weeks ago, I sat in the living room pretending to scroll through the news while Lily watched from the hallway, silently recording her mother's entrance and every word that followed. Elise kissed me on the cheek like always, asked how our day was like always, and poured herself a glass of wine like nothing had changed. But everything had. She didn't know it yet, but Operation Owl had begun. And this time, the eyes watching her weren't naive or forgiving. They were wide open, cold, and unblinking. He looked like a fantasy, clean-cut, confident, and dressed in 1,000-pound suits, but underneath that polished charm, Damon Halvorsen was nothing more than a parasite, a grifter with a perfect smile and a history of wreckage behind him. Bankrupt families, elderly victims scammed out of retirement funds, stolen identities scattered across 3 countries. Elise hadn't fallen in love. She'd fallen into a trap, and in doing so, she'd handed him the keys to our daughter's future without hesitation. But she wasn't the only one with a plan. Lily had been watching, storing everything, piecing together a profile of Damon so detailed it rivaled anything a private investigator could have produced. And now she wanted to do more than expose him, she wanted to bait him. We sat in the shed under dim yellow light, Lily's fingers flying across her tablet as she logged into Elise's hidden email account, the same one she'd used to coordinate transfers and secret bookings. We're going to make him think she's bringing him more money, Lily explained, her tone flat and surgical, like a surgeon prepping for a high-stakes operation. I've copied her writing style, her spelling, even her emojis. He won't know it's me. And then, before I could even stop her, she typed, "Transfer is almost complete. Need you to confirm the wallet. Should be another 15,000 booking tickets for next week." We waited 10 minutes, 20. I was about to pull the plug when a reply pinged back, short and careless. "Confirmed. Send to the same place, and no mistakes this time." There it was, a digital admission, typed without thought, from a man too arrogant to realize a 12-year-old had just outplayed him. Lily smiled, triumphant but not gloating. "Now we push." She attached the original fund transfer documents. Elise had stupidly forwarded to Damon proof that she'd stolen not only from our daughter, but also from our joint savings. We drafted a letter, polite but explosive, and sent it with attachments to 3 inboxes. Elise's manager at the investment firm, the fraud investigations team at the bank where she worked, and thanks to Clara, my journalist friend who I quietly brought into the loop, the email of Damon Halvorson's parole officer, a woman named Miss Granger based in Brighton. Lily double-checked the timestamps, the IP logs, and even added a 4th recipient, herself, CC'd under her school email so no one could claim it was falsified. Then we hit send, and the world shifted. By morning, the dominoes began to fall. Elise came downstairs in a crisp white blouse and pencil skirt, sipping coffee and humming to herself, completely unaware that the walls were already caving in. She kissed me on the cheek like she hadn't emptied her daughter's future, smiled at Lily like she hadn't lied to her face for months. But the call came at 10:06 a.m., right as she was putting on her heels. I watched her face tighten as she answered, "Yes, this is she." A pause. Her mouth twitched. "No. I don't understand. There must be a mistake." Another pause. A long silence. Her knuckles whitened. And then, I need to speak with legal." She hung up, eyes wild, heartbeat visible in the vein pulsing at her neck. She didn't say anything to me, just grabbed her bag and stormed out. But she wasn't headed to work. Her keycard had already been deactivated, her name already pulled from the directory. And by noon, the press release hit the inboxes. Senior financial advisor suspended pending internal investigation of embezzlement allegations. That afternoon, we watched through the front window as 2 men in suits arrived at her office, escorted her out past colleagues who didn't even look surprised. Elise had always carried herself like someone above suspicion, but all it took was one thread pulled and the whole thing unraveled. Meanwhile, Clara confirmed through her source that Damon had been located by Brighton authorities. He was apprehended trying to withdraw money from a shell account flagged earlier that morning. When they took him in, he still had Elise's last fake transferred raft printed and folded in his coat pocket, the one Lily had baited him with. They'd built a case against him already, but our email brought it full circle. The timing was poetic. Elise came home that evening to a house colder than she left it. She opened the door slowly, like the air inside might punch her in the chest. Her heels clicked against the floor as she stepped into the living room where Lily and I sat in silence. I didn't greet her. Lily didn't look up. Elise hovered in the doorway, her eyes darting between us, as if trying to gauge what we knew how much of the truth had surfaced. "You're quiet," she finally said, voice sharp around the edges. I stood. "You should pack a bag." She blinked. "What?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Your job's gone. Your man is gone. And this house. You lost that the second you touched her future." Elise looked to Lily as if hoping to find softness there, but Lily didn't flinch, didn't speak. She just held up her tablet and pressed play. Elise's own voice filled the room from one of her messages to Damon. "He's clueless. She's too young to fight me. This is our chance." Elise's knees buckled slightly. For a moment I thought she might cry, apologize, but she didn't. She turned without a word and went upstairs. We heard drawers opening, zippers being pulled. She left 20 minutes later, dragging a single suitcase, not once looking back. The front door clicked shut behind her, and for the first time in months, the house was still. The war was over. But the damage, the learning that would stay. Lily didn't celebrate. She didn't gloat. She simply turned to me and asked, "Can we open a new account now?" And I nodded because she wasn't asking for money. She was asking for safety, for trust, for a future no one could touch again. Lily didn't want revenge, she wanted oxygen. She wanted safety. She wanted the air in our home to stop feeling like something you had to hold in your lungs. And when Elise walked out with that suitcase and silence trailing behind her, something shifted, not like an explosion, but like a window finally opening after being painted shut for too long. The first night after she was gone, the house felt too quiet. Not peaceful, not yet, but waiting. Lily didn't ask where her mother went. She didn't ask when she'd be back. She just sat at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal and her Harvard brochure beside her, folded down the middle from all the nights she'd held it like a prayer. She didn't say anything until halfway through breakfast. "Can we open it today?" she asked, her spoon tapping the side of the bowl. And I knew what she meant. Not a conversation, not a therapist, Not a trip to clear our heads. She meant the account, her future, the fund that Elise had buried under lies. So we did. That afternoon, we sat at the bank, not the one Elise worked at, but a new branch, under a new name, with a manager who shook Lily's hand like she was the client, not the child. I told him what I wanted. A custodial account in Lily's name, secured with dual authentication, locked from any third party. Access unless approved in person. It's for college, I said simply. No loans, no shortcuts, no one else touches it. Lily sat beside me with her purple notebook and nodded when they asked if she understood. It's mine, she said, and it's real this time. We deposited what we could, the savings I'd protected, plus some of what Elise was legally required to return once the divorce proceedings began. It wasn't the full $57,000 we'd lost, but it was enough to start again. Enough. For Lily to breathe. That night, she asked if we could make it a ritual. What do you mean? I asked. She shrugged. Just something we check. Together, every Sunday. And so we did. Every Sunday evening, she'd bring out her laptop, log in with her fingerprint, and smile faintly when the balance appeared. Not because of the number, but because it was hers, untouched, honest. A promise that hadn't been broken. She never gloated, never boasted. But I caught her once, late at night, staring at that same Harvard brochure on her mirror, now laminated and taped with new edges to keep it from curling. Next to it, she'd stuck a small yellow sticky note. It only had 3 words on it, written in her favorite purple gel pen. Owls never forget. I asked her about it once, and she said it wasn't a warning. It's a reminder, she said softly, that even if you forgive someone, you don't have to stop remembering what they did. I didn't argue. She was right. The court process with Elise was long, cold, and predictable. She denied everything until the proof was undeniable. Her firm quietly terminated her. The financial investigation led to a settlement that forced her to repay a portion of what she took, and Damon, last I heard, was awaiting trial under a mountain of digital evidence that Lily had packaged better than most federal agents. But we didn't talk about them much anymore. They'd become static in the background noise we'd learned to mute. What mattered now was Lily's voice, her choices, her ability to move forward without fear. We redecorated the shed, turned it into her study space, where once there were surveillance notes and flowcharts, now there were string lights and college banners, Yale, Stanford, Oxford. She was dreaming bigger now, not just because she believed she could, but because no one was standing in the doorway to make her feel small. Her confidence grew in subtle ways. She began volunteering at the school library, started tutoring younger kids in maths. One night, she told me she wanted to go into law one day, so no one gets strict like I did. I smiled and told her she already had the instincts of a good lawyer. No, she said, I have the instincts of a daughter who paid attention. That one hit deep. And though she didn't say her mother's name often, I could tell she still thought about her. There were moments, quiet moments, where she'd pause, stare out the window for a beat too long, and then shake herself back to the present. I never pushed. Healing doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs time and space, and Lily was doing both. As for me, I found peace in the routine. I started sleeping again. I started writing again. I started trusting that maybe, just maybe, the future I wanted for her wasn't a fantasy, but a blueprint we were now building together. And every Sunday night, when she logged into her account, I watched her shoulders settle just a bit more, watched the light in her eyes return a little stronger. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about proof that some things are still sacred, that not every adult lies, that not every promise disappears when the world gets dark. And even now, as I write this with her sleeping just down the hall, I think back to the first line she wrote when Operation Owl began, that small sticky note, written in purple, stuck to the inside of her drawer. It said, "Don't be scared of the dark, be the thing that sees through it." And that's exactly what she became.